それでは、おやすみなさいませ、シキ様。
ああ、おやすみ、翡翠。
Alright, now we just gotta wait for our opportunity to strike. I turn off the lights and lie down in bed. There's less than an hour until my meeting with Arcueid. The park's south of the station. It's across the tracks from the business district, and it's the largest park in the city. It takes about half an hour to get there on foot from the Tono residence.
でも、本当に何の用なんだろう、あいつ。
I suppose she's still in the city for the same reason Senpai is. The vampire extermination isn't complete until the last of Lao's stranglers has been taken care of. But then again...
意外だな。先輩たちはともかく、アルクエイドがそこまでしてくれるなんて。
It seemed to me that Arcueid was the only one ever interested in defeating her enemy. I was expecting her to blow off dealing with the fallout, and yet she's still here. Whatever her intentions, at the end of the day, she's still helping to protect the city.
はあ、ずるいよな。それじゃ無視できないじゃないか。
She's an incredibly dangerous creature, sure, but I can tell beyond a shadow of a doubt that she's not a bad person. Vampire or not, never before have I seen a woman with such a beautiful smile. Lights out. With 10 o'clock approaching, the lights in the mansion go out. It's about time. I slip my knife into my pocket just in case and leave my room. There's little sign of life in the park. The area south of the station is mostly taken up by office buildings, so there aren't any locals around to use the park, nor are there any young people stopping by after a night out. By the time the clock hits 10, it's all but empty. Alone in this deserted public space stands a conspicuous white shadow.
あ、来た来た。こんばんは。時間ぴったりだね、シキ。
And there's that smile of hers. I catch myself before I fall sway to its charms and glare pointedly at her. She assaulted me in my room, and was this close to being spotted by Hisui. Tonoshiki barely has a say in what happens around the mansion as it is. Just how would she make up for it if my opinion were to be rendered utterly null and void?
ねえ、聞いて聞いて。さっきまでそこのベンチに二人組の男女がいたんだけど、おかしな話をしていたの。なんでも誕生日が近いから何か欲しいものがないかって。
待った。その前に言っておくことがある。というか、俺は怒っている。お前がきっちり反省するまで話はしないから、そのつもりで。
怒ってるってなんで？
やっぱりな。分かってないと思った。まあそこはいいよ。お前に一般常識なんて求めてないから。どうせ吸血鬼のすることだと諦める。でも付き合わされるこっちはたまらないんで、厳重注意だけはしておきます。
Just as one would train a wild beast.
その言い方なんか嫌。私、あなたを困らせるようなことはしてないんだけど。
Really?
人の部屋に忍び込んでおいてそれか。人間の世界じゃ無断で遊びに来ることも、2階の部屋に窓からやってくることも、そもそも家の敷地に入ることも犯罪なの。まったく、見つからなかったからよかったものの、もし誰かに見られていたらどうするつもりだったんだよ。まさか力ずくで解決とかしないよな。
何よ、失礼ね。そんな野蛮なことしません。第一、人間に見つかるようなヘマはしないわ。 監視カメラだって壊しておいたし、もし誰かに出くわしても意識を飛ばすだけだし。
Really?
カメラ壊しただ。さりげにすごいこと言ったな。それを力ずくって言うんだ、このバカ女。
バカ女って、あなた私をバカにしてるの？
バカをバカって言ってんだから、それ以外何があるって言うんだ、バカ。反論があるなら聞いてやるから言ってみろ。
何よ、私は式に会いに行っただけじゃない。
Yeah, without any warning.
そんなに怒られるようなことしてないと
You
思う。
snuck in. Like, you snuck in through the window. Like, it could be one thing, right? Like, if, like, I don't know, you, like, said, like, yo, let's hang out in your room. That probably wouldn't go well either way. But, like, you could have said something. You know? Any sort of warning would work. I can't believe she's maintaining her innocence even as new charges comes to light. So this is what it feels like to be at a loss for words.
わかった、わかりました。確かにカメラを壊したのは余分な行為だったと思う。要はあれね、人間的にきちんと玄関から行けばよかったんでしょ。次からはそうするわ。招かれないと家に入れないなんて特性もないし。待って、どこ行くのシキ。話
He's
まだ
just
終わって
walking
ないよ。
away. That's hilarious. Whoa, my legs just started making their own way home. Seems like what Arcueid just said finally set some alarm bells ring in my subconscious. Though, it's not like I'd actually be able to give her the slip, so I trudge back over to where she's standing.
悪い。考え事をしていたら足が勝手に動いた。あと、玄関からやってきたらその時こそ絶好だからな。本気で恨んでやるから覚悟しやがれ。
玄関からでもダメなの？じゃあどうすればいいのよ。私にあなたに近寄るなって言っているの？
そんなこと言うか、バカ。何もかもいきなりすぎるから、ちゃんと段階を踏んでくれればいいんだ。お前はいるだけで目立つんだから、もっとおしとやかに行動してくれってこと。
I'd even feel comfortable with her visiting the Tono mansion whenever she feels like it, so long as I invite her in first, introduce her to Akiha, and we can get a couple of practice runs under our belt before letting her loose. I was thinking of conveying these nuisances to Arcueid, but she glares at me with a sullen scowl on her face, like an indignant cat.
何よ、勝手なことばっかり言って。だいたいいるだけで目立つってどうしてよ。私、外見は人間と変わらないでしょ。
あのな、美人はいるだけで目立つもんなの。人間であるかどうかは関係ない。
I answer her clearly. The cat ears, I love them. Perhaps because my reply left little room for debate, Arcueid seems to have accepted it without a fuss.
まあ、こっちも言い過ぎたけど。とにかく、今後はあんな無茶はやめてくれ。俺の心臓が止まりかねない。
うん、わかったわ。シキの心臓が止まるのは嫌だから、できるだけおしとやかにする。
Arcueid nods, a demure expression adorning her features. Well, would you look at that? She actually will listen if you give her a stern warning. Actually, given the way she's sheepishly hunching her shoulders, it's almost as if Arcueid's acting like an ordinary human girl.
じゃあ本題に入るぞ。どうしてうちに来たんだ、アルクエイド。俺にはもう用はないはずだろ。
何って吸血鬼探しよ。シキ、私に協力してくれるって言ったじゃない。
やっぱりそうきたか。親元は倒したけど、まだ手下が残ってるもんな。でもどんな心境の変化だよ。お前の敵はブローブだけじゃなかったのか。
Ah, so this is where she tells us about
私
Rowan?
の敵はブローブじゃないよ。 私が探していたのはこの町に作った吸血鬼で、ブローブは関係ないもの。
は？
Love was unrelated?
待ってくれ。それ、どういう意味なんだ？
言った通りの意味だけど。もう、式って切れるようでどこか抜けてるのね。いい？確かにブローブは吸血鬼だったけど、あいつは人の血を吸っていた？
吸っていたかって、当然だろ。あいつはあんなに人間を片っ端から燃やして。
Oh, yeah. That's right. Why didn't I spot such an obvious discrepancy? All of the victims of the serial killer were discovered without injuries to their bodies, outside the fact that their blood was drained. But that's not what Vlav would do. That guy burned corpses to a crisp. It's true that he did suck blood, but that wasn't the main way he killed people. In fact, the people who died at the hotel are currently being treated as casualties of a conflagration, not as victims in a murder case. Which means that Vlav has no connection to the serial killings that have been happening in the city.
待ってくれ。じゃあ、吸血殺人事件は何なんだ？一体どこの誰があんな真似をしていたんだ？
だから、あの事件はブローブと別の吸血鬼の仕業なのよ。この町に隠れていたのはロアという名前の使徒よ。年月をかけて都市を侵食するタイプで、その特色は転生すること。一つの都市を汚染した後、その命を終えて次の都市を食い物にする吸血鬼。
There's an unmistakable note of disgust in Arcueid's voice. I feel a brief shiver run down my spine. The intensity in her voice must have been too much for me to take.
転生って、死んだら生まれ変わるって意味の転生？
I think the proper name for it is Samsara or something like that. It's a Buddhist concept which states that when you die, you're simply reborn at your next life. The soul itself is eternal.
そう。殺されても次の命に生まれ変わる人間を利用した不老不死の亜種。転生は聖堂教会の教義にはないから、ロアはいないものとして扱われてきたわ。私はそのロアを殺すためにこの町にやってきた。ブローブが来た理由はちょっとあやふやになってきたわね。名誉目当てで私を追いかけてきた祖かと思ったけど、ブローブにはそれだけの理性、使徒社会における協調性はなかったみたいだし。ま、そのあたりはもういっか。ブローブは死んだんだし。とにかくブローブとロアは別物よ。ブローブは正真正銘、この町の使徒化とは無関係の第三者ってこと。私、標的がブローブだなんて言わなかったでしょ。ブローブにとっての標的は私だったけど、私にとっての標的はブローブじゃなくて、この町で通り魔と言われている吸血鬼だけよ。シキ、まさかとは思うけど、ものすごく単純な勘違いしてたとか？
あ、うん。勘違いしてた。
Hey, at least you're owning up to it. I somewhat awkwardly break eye contact with Arcueid. Because she said that killing vampires was her objective, I immediately jumped to what seemed to have been the wrong conclusion.
それじゃあ、あの夜ブローブと殺し合ったのは無意味なことだったのか？
無意味じゃないわ。ブローブがあなたたちにとって脅威だったのは事実だし、シキは私の代わりに戦ってくれたんじゃない。だからそんな顔しないで。もっと自信を持って。あの時のシキは綺麗だった。私、あんなに目が離せなかったのは初めてだった。まあ、だからこそあいつが視界に映るのが我慢ならなかったんだけど、目障りにも程があったわ。
Damn, she actually moved me a bit there. To think Arcueid of all people would be so supportive. Still, she's right. what we accomplished wasn't in vain. It doesn't matter who Vlav was. He was a living disaster who had to be defeated. Even if I'm someone who can't do anything other than kill things, I can at least say with certainty that I helped to achieve that goal.
いや、でも待て。じゃあ吸血鬼事件は何も解決してないってことか。ロアってやつはまだ生きているんだから。
So you don't know that.
それも問題なし。もう危険はないから安心して。ここからは後処理みたいなものだし。
後処理ってことは。
I think I can guess what's coming, but...
ええ、ロア本体はとっくに始末したわ。言ったでしょ、シキのおかげだって。ブローブに使う分の力が余ってたし、すぐに見つけてやっつけちゃった。
Arcueid nonchalantly reports the end of the serial killings.
それは町の人間として助かるけど。
A feeling of foreboding crawls up in my spine, and my heart throbs violently.
でもロアを殺してもそのしもべはまだ活動している。前に話したでしょ、親元としもべの関係。死者はみんな死体に戻っただろうけど、使徒にまでなったのが数体残ってるみたいなの。それでね、シキ。
Arcueid calls my name in a wielding tone. I can see where this is going. I hate that I can see where this is going. Basically, the reason Arcueid called me out here is because...
ロアを倒すのに力を使っちゃったから疲れちゃって。
Yeah.
誰かが私と一緒に使徒の後始末をしてくれたら助かるんだけどな。
Just as I suspected. I do appreciate what Arcueid is doing. The vampires still in this city can't just be left to their own devices. Still, that doesn't mean I can agree to help her that readily. I think back on the fight against Vlav. The fear I felt back then, while skirting the precipice of death, is so burned into my mind that simply thinking back on it sends a shiver down my spine. I've returned to my normal life. I'm not going to get involved with vampires again. I even promised Senpai wouldn't.
そっか。じゃあとっておきを言ってあげる。お願いだからブローブを倒してくれ。これって誰の言葉だったかしら。
She's got me there. Arcueid might have flipped out when she spotted Ciel Senpai, but at the end of the day, she still helped us. If she hadn't been there to protect us against the billowing cold, I'm not the only one who would have ended up encased in ice. The whole city would have been frozen solid. Which means, now it's time for me to hold up my end of the bargain.
わかった。手を貸す。貸せばいいんだろ。いいよ。俺も吸血鬼の排除には賛成だし。怖いのは嫌だけど、我慢して協力してやる。
そうこなくっちゃ。頼りにしてるわ、シキ。私と一緒に戦ってね。
Arcueid is positively beaming. She's counting on me. I'm pretty sure she'd be totally fine on her own. Still, hearing her say that certainly does make it feel like something worth doing. I feel like there was another meaning of the word vampire. Maybe that a vamp can also refer to a temptress that seduces men? I'd say that definition suits her to a T. Even if she hadn't brought up her promise, I could never have refused the way she smiled at me.
ロアを失ったしもべたちの取る行動は2つ。身の危険を察して巣に引きこもるか、支配者から解放されたことで自由に夜を闊歩するか。今夜は前者、引きこもっている方に狙いをつけましょう。
After saying this, Arcueid starts leading me toward the residential district. Based on what I've heard so far, I'd assume that the vampires taking advantage of their newfound freedom would be the most dangerous. However, that means that the executors, that Ciel Senpai and the others, will take care of them even if we don't do anything.
まず危険なのは自由になってはしゃいでいる人だろうけど、この町にはあいつがいるから、そんなの昨日のうちに見つかって狩られてるわ。次に危険度が高いのは住処で休眠している集団ね。親元を倒すぐらいの外敵が現れた以上、群れていた方が安全と考える知能があるから。で、危険度難易度ともに高いのが自由になった時点で群れから離れてじっと町に潜むやつ。それだけの判断力と適応力があるなら4回転を超えているだろうし、時間さえあれば新しい派閥を作りかねない。
新しい派閥、あの地下の広場みたいなものか。
地下の広場？そんなのあったのね。うん、ロアのコミュニティほどじゃないだろうけど、月に1人の割合で人知れず犠牲者を出すぐらいの。でも代行者がいる限り、そんな真似をしたらすぐに見つかって処理されるわ。だから代行者がいる以上、上級の人はなかなか尻尾を出さないの。あいつらは死者狩りには便利だけど、同時に上級の人を警戒させる厄介者なのよ。
I see. For vampires, executors are like the police. Just having them around is enough to crack down on spontaneous assaults, as well as put a serious dent in rates of premeditated crime. However, that's nothing more than deterrence. In order to locate the criminals, vampires, in this case, slow and steady effort is required.
それじゃあ今から行くところは吸血鬼が集まっている隠れ家なのか。
ええ、確証は取れていないけど、それは式がいればはっきりするわ。それより式、ロアの棺がどこにあったのか聞かないの？
Arcueid said something strange.
別にいいよ。もう型がついたんなら興味はないし、俺には関係のない話だし。
そうなんだ。式の学校の地下にあったんだよって驚かそうと思ったのにな。
Huh? Arcueid pouted, seemingly disappointed.
いや待て、そりゃ驚くよ。吸血鬼のボスのネグラがうちの学校の地下だったって。
ええ、上手に隠されてたけど、そこはほら繊細かつ緻密な操作で見つけちゃった。
なぜ疑問符が差し込まれる。
That's gotta be the most suspicious explanation I've ever heard. Still, underneath the school, Arcueid may have taken care of it already, but I still can't help feeling a little uneasy.
式？どうしたの？怖い顔をして。
いや、親玉の住処が学校の地下にあったのなら、うちの生徒たちが犠牲になっていたかもしれない。
それはないと思うけど、本体が眠る棺は最後の隠れ家だから、その周辺で食事なんて取らないわ。下手に血の匂いを残したら代行者にたどられてしまうでしょ。
そっか、自分の家の玄関で事件を起こすようなものだもんな。
そうそう、元凶の膝元では異常は起きない。これ人でも人間でも共通の隠蔽法でしょ。
That makes sense. Arcueid takes the lead, her steps light. She sure is carefree for someone on their way to a vampire hideout. I'm not sure how to feel. I'm nervous, but not exactly scared. I wonder if that's because I think it'll be a cakewalk compared to the battle against Vlav, or if I've just gotten a bit braver recently. Whatever the reason, I'm glad to not be shaking in fear. Bless you. I look up as Arcueid suddenly sneezes. I'm about to comment that even vampires feel the cold, but then remember the battle against Vlav, so yeah, pretty obvious they do. She may be a lot sturdier than humans are, but if you cut her, she still bleeds, and she definitely feels the pain. I've seen plenty of evidence for that.
そのミニスカが原因か。 寒いのならこれ着るか？
I take off my jacket and offer it to Arcueid.
いいの？やった！ちょっとの間だけ借りるね。
Arcueid puts on my jacket and twirls around, almost dancing as she continues to lead on. Arcueid sure is raring to go for someone who was sneezing a second ago. She's like a bundle of energy, or a beautiful flower. Anyway, idly gazing at her is proving dangerously intoxicating. If I'm not careful, I might even fall for her.
なんだそれ。ここまで惚れっぽかったのか、俺。
I shake my head, tearing my eyes away from her. We come out through the underpass, arriving at the deserted residential district. The vampire nest Arcueid was talking about is now right around the corner. We've arrived at an apartment complex located square in the heart of the residential area. An utterly unremarkable 4-story building, nothing unusual about it. Every floor has around 4 units, most of which have the lights on.
このマンションがそうなのか？
ええ、それをあなたで確かめるの。シキ、ここでメガネを外して、あの建物の周りを見て。
メガネを外してって、なんで？
その方が確実だから。私は人間と人間じゃないものの気配を感じ取れる。あなたは生者と死者の違いが視覚情報として読み取れる。索敵方法は大いに越したことはないでしょ。これは明日からのテストも兼ねているわ。シキが私と行動するということは、その目で街を見るということだから。
I understand what Arcueid is getting at. I was the one who said we should cooperate, so it's not like I can refuse. In the 7 years since I received these glasses, I haven't walked around town without them even once. I mean, just seeing things with my glasses off is enough to give me a headache. It's easy to imagine what would happen to me if I were to look at the city or passers-by without them. But that's not something I can say after the past 2 days. I have experienced hell, if only once. For as long as the horrors I witness underground remain etched into my brain, enduring a headache or two is nothing in comparison.
メガネを外すよ。それで型がつくなら安いもんだ。
The lines come into view. The stress it puts in my brain makes me want to throw up. This place is strange. The lines running along the building don't look any different than usual, but there's something oddly chilling about them. Perhaps it's the brilliant white of the light leaking from the rooms, or maybe it's the woman just returning to the apartment, on whose body the lines of death draw a dense, whirling maelstrom.
そう、やっぱり当たりね。
Rather than heading for the entrance to the complex, Arcueid sets off down the slope leading to the underground garage. A shutter has been lowered over the entrance.
このシャッター、人よけと消臭の結界がかかってる。それも、ロアが消えたことで薄れているけど。
Arcueid stoops down and puts her hands on the edge of the shutter. I thought she would pull it and up in one go, but...
シキ、このシャッター切れる？
そりゃ切れるけど、いいのか？
ええ、私よりシキが敵に。無理やり開けると警報が鳴るでしょ。
She does have a point. Now that the time has come to act, Arcueid is totally level-headed. I sever the lines on the shutter. With a crashing sound, the iron door falls onto the concrete floor. I peer through the hole cut in the shutter into the inky blackness beyond.
なんだこの匂い。
The odor is repulsive. The smell of rotting flesh pervades the insides of the garage, and the air is heavy with the scent of blood. And there they are. A group forms, each member a squirming mass of lines. They must have noticed that they had visitors as soon as I cut through the shutter. There are 5 figures.
5体もいる。いや、それより気づかれてる。あいつらやる気だぞ、アルクエイド。
When I turn around, the white figure that had been there a moment ago is nowhere to be seen. Arcueid vanished while I was busy cutting the shutter. Without realizing it, I've wandered straight into the inescapable jaws of death. I can't retreat at all. I can't even turn to look back. The instant I take my gaze off them, I'll be reduced to an unsightly sacrifice. Uh-oh. Crimson ruptures my vision. A broken mirror. The scattered pieces of a puzzle. The writhing lines of death pass through my eyeballs and carve themselves into my brain. There's nothing I can do. Because I wasn't afraid, I came in here without coming up with a plan first. I'm dead. I'm going to die here. The claws of those half-rotted corpses will scramble the contents of my skull into a sticky mess. Collect yourself. There's nothing I can do. My sense of reason, which I had grown conceited after making it out of a predicament once before, gives up on being shiki. With it gone, all that remains is my bare self, finally released from the threadbare patchwork of humanity I had cobbled together. There you go. My body moves before my mind has a chance to catch up. I don't even so much as hesitate as I dismantle them. I recall the warm smell of blood, the feeling of slicing through her untouched flesh. Yep. Slashing and thrashing. As I cut them down. My mind conjures images of that scene I had tried so hard to forget, looping through as though savoring them. I start to breathe again. A splitting headache dispels my dizziness. 1 minute has passed, and the limbs of 5 bodies now lie strewn around me like garbage.
見ちゃった。すごいんだ。本気になった式って。
There you are.
アルクエイド。
I turn around, my eyes still clouded by the headache and a slight fever. All of a sudden, Arcueid is back, walking amidst the sea of blood. The scattered flesh crumbles into ash and is swept away by the wind. Only the oily bloodstains remain.
でも無茶は禁物よ。ほら、早くメガネをかけて。そのままだと倒れちゃうでしょ。
そうだな。ありがとう。
I do as I'm told and put on my glasses, then slip my knife back into my pocket. I'm still feeling more and more nauseous from that smell of blood, but at least my headache disappears the second I put on my glasses.
死ぬかと思った。じゃなくて。話が違うぞ、アルクエイド。なんだっていなくなるんだよ、お前は。
あら、協力するってこういうことでしょ。まさか私にだけ戦わせて自分は何もしないつもりだったの？あなたは。
いや、それはそうだけど。
I can't argue with an airtight case like that. To get involved with vampires is to steep oneself into mortal danger. If I forget about that for even a second, then I have no one to blame but myself.
確かに、俺は気が抜けてた。 それは認める。けどそれなら事前にそうと言ってくれ。お前なんか意地が悪くなってないか？
ええ、楽しんだのは事実よ。シキの魔眼がどれだけすごいのか自分の目できちんと確かめたかったから。
テストってそういうことかよ。はいはい、じゃあ結果はどうでしたか、お姫様。
文句なし。あなたの目は破格の魔眼よ。その希少価値は言葉では言い表せないぐらい。
それはよかった。お眼鏡にかなって光栄ですとも。
I let out a sigh in reply. Even though her praise is honest, it doesn't cheer me up at all. Being complimented on my murderous talents feels the same as being told that I'm an awful person.
でもその目と同じぐらいあなた自身もおかしな人ね。直前まで逃げ腰だったのにナイフを握って殺すと決めた途端迷いなく死者を解体するんだもの。そういうところ私と似ているのかも。なのに人間よりも人間らしいなんてすごく不思議。
What emotions were in those words, I don't know. Affection? Adoration? Or perhaps there was even a hint of love and tenderness in them. But they come so utterly out of the blue that I'm unable to respond.
ねえ、ドアの後始末が終わったら私と一緒に行かない？よくわからないけど一人で帰るの嫌になっちゃった。
Arcueid has put a bit of distance between us and speaks those words while looking back at me over her shoulder.
あのな、行くってどこにだよ。まさかお前の故郷じゃないだろうな。
Not realizing how earnest her question was, I respond with banter.
何その嫌そうな顔。私一応お姫様だよ。玉の腰乗ってみない？
お断りだ。そんな爆弾みたいな腰に乗れるか、バカ。
なんか今すごく侮辱された気がするんですけど。
After I somehow manage to pacify Arcueid's petulant grumbling, I take another look around the underground parking lot. It doesn't seem like there are any other vampires here. It's possible that if this row person had been still alive and well, the entire apartment complex would have swarmed us, but instead it seems like that was all of them. The other residents must have been those rank 1 and 2 dead that Senpai was talking about, lower rank dead apostles that go back to just being corpses without a sire.
もうここには誰もいなそうだな。外に出よう、アルクエイド。さすがに血の匂いがきつい。
I call out to Arcueid and leave the garage. With this, the seal has been broken. Light from outside can finally illuminate the darkness of the dead for the first time in who knows how many years. Once outside, I fill my lungs with fresh air. Though this job is over with, I don't feel much of a sense of accomplishment. I mean, it's not like the hunt for Ro's remaining offspring is over, and more importantly, what are we supposed to do about this apartment complex?
どうするんだ、アルクエイド。他に吸血鬼がいないとしても、ここはねぐらの一つなんだろう。もしかしたら中に隠れている奴がいるかもしれないし、念のために調べるか。
もちろんしっかり後始末はするわ。じゃあ式はちょっと離れてて。
Whoa, that look. Arcueid turns back to the apartment complex and then raises her left hand in the air. As soon as she does... Whoa, she just destroys the whole thing. Okay. That's the solution. I hear the sound of something being crushed, and the entire apartment complex collapses in the blink of an eye. It was like a cake being flattened from above some invisible implements.
どう？式みたいな希少性はないけど、私だってすごいでしょ？
That's the shit Happy Chaos did to the fucking apartment complex trying to get Nago, right? Pretty much the same thing. Arcueid smiles proudly.
応してくれた？というか驚いた？
そうか、バカだったな、お前。
I grab Arcueid's hand and start running. At this point, her powers no longer surprise me. I mean, they were ludicrous enough to protect this entire city from Vov's billowing cold. But I really wish she'd do something about her complete lack of common sense.
なんで逃げるの？もう危険はなくなったのに。
あんな騒ぎを起こしたら人が集まってくるだろう。ちょっとは考えろ、バカ女。
それはそうよね。
God.
私ったらうっかりさん？
すごいな、分かっててやったのか。
Arcueid being Arcueid. She is just so needlessly hard to deal with. We run upstream against the crowds of people coming to see what all the fuss is about, back in the direction of the deserted park. The building isn't flattened by heavy machinery or explosives, but by a controlled natural phenomenon, the slight adjustment of the Earth's rotation. She listens with equal parts astonishment and animosity as the modern way of life, built from the fruits of civilization, by human society, comes crashing down. Yep, see, I was watching. A nun's habit flutters in the wind. I think this is the first time we've seen her in her nun habit, in this route. That's cool. The executor witnesses the event from her perch 20 meters in the air. Her mission was to take care of the dead apostles running rampant throughout the city, but she has already completed it. She hunted down every last rank 4 dead apostle last night. All that remained was to locate the sire's coffin, as well as to uncover and annihilate the feeding ground that she saw reduced to rubble a moment ago.
空想具現化を惜しげもなく使うなんて。何を考えているんですか、あの吸血鬼は。
You probably saw Shiki with her too. Crazy part. She mutters in annoyance. Though the executor had been overseeing Arcueid Brunstad silently up to this point, she is finally unable to endure it any longer, and gives vent to her emotions.
彼も彼です。弱みでも握られているんでしょうか。
Her gaze falls upon the boy running with Arcueid in tow. As she watches, she grows more and more annoyed. The executor does not know if it's because of her hatred of the vampire, or out of displeasure at seeing those two together. You have feelings for Shiki too, I see. After watching the pair run off in the direction of the park, the executor turns back toward the collapsed apartment complex. Residents from the surrounding neighborhood have started to crowd around, attracted by the sound of the commotion. A few police cars are headed this way, cruising down the thoroughfare that connects to the station plaza.
迷宮入りの案件がまた一つ増えましたね。事後処理はあなたの方でこなしてくれるのですか、司祭代行。
Oh, Mario's here too? Without turning around, the executor addresses the darkness behind her.
なんだてめえ、気づいてんならそう言えっての。声をかけるタイミングがつかめなかったじゃねえか。
The faint noise of the wind rushes across the scene. The owner of this voice is striding across the sky at the same height as the executor's dizzying perch. However, there is nothing but air beneath his feet. Behind the executor stands Mario Galapustino, acting Privester at the tender age of 12, seemingly floating in midair.
ノエル先生からあなたのことは聞いています。互いに自己紹介は必要ありませんね。
まあな、てめえの経歴は嫌ってほど目を通した。今さら何を聞くまでもねえ。んで、あれの処理の話な。じき俺の使えねえ部下が駆けつけて話をつけるんで、てめえはとっとと消えていいぜ。下の野獣馬どもにいちいち暗示をかける必要はねえよ。
Looking down, she can see a blackened out civilian car pulling in behind the police cars that have just arrived on the scene. The people inside are police inspectors from a jurisdiction that's under Mario's thumb. They'll be quick to ensure that this inexplicable phenomenon gets filled away as nothing more than an accident.
それは結構。こちらも手間が省けます。ですが、いいのですか？ ノエル先生には厳しく詰問したと聞きますが。
埋葬機関の犬が権力になびく玉かよ。大体殺されても値を上げないって話じゃねえかてめえ。マグロ相手に拷問するほど暇じゃねえしな。てめえらの単独行動には目をつぶってやるよ。それとも任意同行するか、おい。
構いませんよ。司祭代行の言葉は尊重します。ただしそれが正式な手続きによるものならですが。
Mario doesn't answer. He simply curls his lips in amusement.
話が早くて助かるぜ。さすが歴戦の強者だな、大公者。というわけで、てめえとの情報交換はなしだ。それとも借りを作っておくか？
必要ありません。こちらはこちらの責務を、あなたはあなたの職務を果たしてください、マリオ。
へえ、俺はてっきりここで殺し合いになると思ったんだがね。邪魔者は事前に潰すのがてめえらの流儀だ。大司祭直下の俺は目の上のコブじゃないのかい？
The boy's voice is both hostile and provocative. The executor doesn't even turn to look at him, and his words fall flat against her back.
そうですね。ただの司祭代行ならそれもあり得たでしょう。ですがあなたなら例外です。いえ、ラウレンティスの人間であれば誰であれ信用に値します。
はあ？なんだそれ。信用に値するだ。権力に尻尾は振らねえてめえがたった今背金主義にでも目覚めたか？いやまあ確かに金ほど信用しやすい見返りはねえけどな。
顔は似ていますが兄上とは正反対ですね、あなたは。心の底から失望しました。
ああ、ちょっと待てよ、尻でか女。あのクソ兄貴が何だって？
私はあなたの兄を知っています。以前一度だけ同じ任務に就いたことがあるので。ラウレンティス枢機卿の息子ということで周囲からは誤解されていましたが、彼は尊敬に値する人物でした。その彼が言ったのです。もし弟たちに会うことがあったらなるべく手加減してやってくれ。ひねくれているが根は青臭い正義感だと。
なんだそれ、みっともねえ。死ねばいいってんだ、あのクソ兄貴。使い捨てのメス犬一匹に何媚び売ってやがる、ラウレンティスの面汚しが。
ええ、その一点であなたたちは信用できます。父上の名誉を守る、そのためにあなたたちは行動している。ここで私を捕獲するより他に優先すべきことがあるのでしょう。
なんだそりゃ、親父の名誉を守る。そんなことはあのクソ兄貴がほざきやがったのか？
いいえ、そういったことは一度も。とにかく無口な方だったので、ただ共に過ごして私がそう感じただけの話です。
これだから20歳そこそこのガキは半端に理想に燃えてやがるから始末に追えねえ。
昔の話ですよ。あれから6年、今はお父上の補佐に務めているのでは。彼のことです。立派な人物になっているでしょう。
The boy watches the executor reminisce about the past with a cold look in his eyes. The acting prime minister briefly grinds his teeth together in frustration, and then...
いい、しらけた。もうてめえとは交渉なんざしてやらねえ。勝手に一人で土地狂ってろ。どうせロア狙いだろ。こっちも同じだが、用があるのは奴の攻防だけだ。本体はてめえに任せてやるよ。
With a whirring sound, he begins to distance himself from the executor. The provocative air he'd given off a moment ago has vanished. Something about the executor appears to have struck a chord.
待ちなさい、司祭代行。一件だけあなたに頼みたいことがありました。 それを条件にここから見逃してあげましょう。
はあ
Mario's fingers stop. Just as he's about to turn and spit out some pithy retort, he realizes that her words are no idle threat. Only one of the strings keeping the boy afloat in the sky still remains. Mere seconds ago, a whip of over 700 spirit strings had surrounded the executor. Every single thread bar one was just silently reduced to ash.
魔術栄唱はなかったな。指先から魔力を流しただけで燃やしやがったか。嘘みてえな生成量だ。波の魔術師の何百倍だ。とっくに化け物だな、大公主シエル。まあそうでもなけりゃイデアブラッドを2つも3つも保持していねえか。
おしゃべりは結構。最後の一本も燃やしますか？
待てやめろ。転落死なんて間抜けな死に方は冗談でも勘弁だ。ってもう燃えてる燃えてる。相変わらず容赦ねえなてめえ。もう仕方ねえ。聞くだけは聞いてやるよ。要件を言ってみな。
私の同僚の処遇についてです。すでにあなたは彼女に会っています。なら私からの提案は理解できると思いますが。
The executor's tone is ice cold. All she says is a statement of fact, her voice utterly flat and emotionless. She may not have put it into words, but the implication is clear. Executor Noel has hit her limit. She is over capacity, both mentally and physically.
ああ、そういうこと。人事異動は俺の領分だ。片手までいいなら請け負ってやるけどよ。いいのか？俺に預けるってことは好き勝手に使い潰すってことだぜ。
構いません。できれば近日中に手続きを。彼女はブローブ・アルハンゲリに血を吸われてもいます。問題ないレベルですが万が一ということもあります。あなたの権限で汚染審査を行ってください。
万が一ね。まあプラシーボ効果ってのもあるしな。俺から見てもありゃガタガタだ。早いとこ全身診察してやるとするか。それでてめえがこっちの邪魔をしなくなるってんなら安い買い物だ。
The negotiations are complete. This time, the boy successfully withdraws from his position 20 meters in the air. Only one figure remains, her nun's habit fluttering in the wind. She looks back once again at the sight of the collapse below her and lets out a small sigh. That shot looks so cool, dude. Holy shit.